I'm Anna Weber, and I thought my marriage to Lucas was perfect until I exposed his endless lies. He called me monster, but Sophia's devastating question didn't just eradicate them. It revealed his biggest secret live in court. If you're loving this elegant revenge story, hit subscribe for more twists that silence betrayers. I am 38 years old, and until recently, I believed my life followed a script written by order, discipline, and quiet dignity. I was the elegant financial manager everyone trusted, the woman who balanced spreadsheets by day and hosted candlelit dinners by night. Our suburban home was tasteful, calm, and predictably beautiful. The kind neighbors admired from behind trimmed hedges. Lucas, my husband, fit perfectly into that picture. He was charming in public, successful in real estate, and endlessly praised by his family for being reliable and ambitious together. We looked unbreakable. I wore that image like a tailored coat. Proud, composed, certain that I had chosen well and built something lasting for years. My mornings followed the same ritual. Coffee brewed slowly while sunlight crept across the kitchen tiles. Lucas would straighten his tie, kiss my cheek, and tell me how lucky he was to have a wife who understood numbers better than most men. I believed those words. I believed the way he smiled at me across dinner tables, the way he squeezed my hand during family gatherings, the way his mother called me the perfect match for her son. I mistook routine for trust, repetition for truth. Looking back now, I see how comfort can be the most dangerous illusion of all. Our marriage was praised as modern and equal. We shared a joint account, planned investments together, and spoke openly about the future. At least, that is what I thought. Lucas insisted transparency was his value, his pride. He loved reminding me that secrets destroyed marriages, and I nodded, agreeing wholeheartedly. I had no reason to doubt him then. I was too busy believing in the life we curated so carefully, too busy protecting a harmony that felt earned. If you recognize that feeling, that calm confidence before a storm, stay with me. Because this is where everything begins to crack. There were no screaming arguments, no slammed doors, no obvious betrayals at first. Just a flawless surface that made me feel safe. I hosted dinners for his colleagues, listened to his stories about closing deals, and supported his long hours. When he said work demanded more of him, I admired his dedication. When he praised my patience, I felt valued. Every compliment reinforced my belief that I was married to a good man. That belief became my blindfold, and blindfolds, I learned, make monsters of the truth. Sometimes, late at night, I would review our finances, not out of suspicion but habit. Numbers comforted me. They behaved logically, honestly. I trusted them more than emotions. The accounts always balanced, the transfers made sense, the future projections looked stable. Or so I thought. There is a particular cruelty in betrayal when it hides inside familiarity. It doesn't announce itself. It waits, silent, while you defend it to others, while you smile and say, "We're happy." Lucas loved to talk about loyalty. He said it often, almost theatrically. Loyalty to family, to marriage, to reputation. I absorbed those speeches as proof of his integrity. I repeated them to friends. I defended him when others joked about unfaithful husbands. I became the loudest guardian of a man who was quietly dismantling me. That irony still burns. If you've ever defended someone who later shattered you, you already know the weight of that realization. The truth is, illusions do not break all at once. They splinter. A tiny sound, barely audible, like a crack in glass that only appears when the light hits it just right. At the time, I didn't hear it yet. I was still standing in the warm glow of certainty, convinced that monsters existed only in stories, not in marriages like mine. I had no idea that soon, that word would be thrown at me, weaponized to silence me, used to rewrite reality itself. As you listen to my story, remember this beginning. Remember the calm, the trust, the carefully arranged life that seemed immune to chaos. Because what comes next is not just about betrayal. It is about how easily a woman can be transformed from devoted wife to accused monster, the moment she dares to see clearly. Stay with me because the illusion is about to shatter, and when it does, nothing will ever look the same again. The first crack didn't come with shouting or tears. It arrived quietly, disguised as something trivial, something easy to ignore. I was sitting in my car, waiting outside the grocery store, when my phone buzzed with a notification that wasn't meant for me. Lucas's phone, synced to the car's system, lit up the dashboard for just a second. One message. One name I didn't recognize. One line that lodged itself into my chest like a splinter I couldn't pull out. Last night meant everything to me. No emojis. No context. Just intimacy hanging naked in the air. At first, my mind rushed to protect him. Protect us. I told myself it was a mistake, a wrong number, a misunderstood fragment of conversation. I turned the engine off and sat there longer than necessary, staring at the steering wheel as if it could give me answers. My heart was beating too fast for something I claimed was insignificant. That contradiction alone should have warned me. But denial is persuasive. It speaks softly and sounds reasonable, especially when the truth threatens to dismantle your entire life. That evening, I watched Lucas more closely than ever before. The way he laughed, the way he checked his phone when he thought I wasn't looking, the way his affection felt slightly delayed, like a performance remembered rather than felt. He kissed me, asked about my day, ate dinner at the table we had shared for years. Everything looked the same, but it felt different. Once suspicion enters, nothing remains neutral. Every gesture becomes evidence, every silence suspicious. If you've ever felt that shift, that subtle emotional vertigo, you know exactly what I mean. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I needed certainty. Emotion is loud, but facts are precise. I told myself I would observe, not accuse. Still, sleep refused to come that night. My thoughts replayed the message over and over, filling the gaps with possibilities I didn't want to imagine. By morning, I felt hollowed out, as if something essential had been removed while I wasn't looking. Lucas noticed my quiet and called it stress. He suggested a weekend away. I smiled and agreed, playing my role perfectly. The next days were torture wrapped in routine. I went to work, managed portfolios, smiled at clients. On the surface, I was the same composed Anna. Inside, I was unraveling. I checked her finances more frequently, searching for irregularities without admitting why. Everything still looked clean. Too clean. That, too, bothered me. Lies often hide behind perfection. I began to understand that trust, once fractured, forces you to see patterns you were trained to ignore. Then came the second message. This time, I saw it clearly. Lucas had left his phone charging on the kitchen counter when it vibrated. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't even near it. But the screen lit up and there it was again. The same name. A photo preview blurred but unmistakably intimate. My hands shook as I turned away, my breath shallow, my vision narrowing. In that moment, my illusion didn't shatter, it screamed. And once you hear that scream, you can never unhear it. I remember standing at the sink, gripping the edge until my knuckles turned white. Part of me wanted to confront him immediately, demand explanations, force the truth into the open. Another part, colder and clearer, told me to wait. Monsters, I would soon learn, are very skilled liars when cornered. I needed proof. Real proof. The kind that survives gaslighting, family judgment, and courtroom scrutiny. If you're still with me, this is where my transformation truly began. That night, Lucas lied effortlessly. He talked about work stress, about deadlines, about loyalty. The irony was suffocating. I listened, nodded, even reached for his hand. Inside, something hardened. Love was retreating, replaced by resolve. I wasn't angry yet. I was focused. Betrayal doesn't always ignite rage first. Sometimes it sharpens you. Sometimes it turns grief into strategy. Before going to bed, I made a decision that would change everything. I would no longer rely on words, promises, or appearances. I would rely on evidence, quietly, carefully. Because I sensed that the moment I spoke, the narrative would turn against me. I could already hear it forming. Anna is paranoid. Anna is overreacting. Anna is a monster. And I wasn't ready to wear that name, not yet. If this story resonates with you, if you've ever felt that first undeniable crack in trust, subscribe now. What followed was not impulsive or emotional. It was calculated. And the next step I took would pull the curtain back on a truth far darker than I imagined. I didn't hire a private investigator the way people imagine in movies, with whispered meetings in dark cafes or dramatic confessions. I did it the way I handle everything important in my life, quietly, methodically, and without emotion. A single online search led me to a discreet firm, specializing in marital investigations. No sensational promises, just documentation of facts. When I spoke to the woman on the phone, my voice didn't shake. I introduced myself calmly, as if I were discussing a routine financial audit. In a way, that's exactly what this was. An audit of my marriage. Her name was Claire. Professional. Efficient. She didn't ask why. She didn't need to. She asked for dates, schedules, habits. I knew all of them. Lucas's routines were predictable: gym on Tuesdays, late client dinners on Thursdays, occasional weekend showings that somehow lasted all day. Saying it out loud felt surreal. I realized how well I had memorized the life of a man who was actively hiding another one from me. If you're watching this and thinking, how could you not know? Understand this: betrayal thrives on predictability. The first week was agony. Every notification from Claire sent a jolt through my chest. Yet when we spoke, she remained factual, almost clinical. Nothing conclusive yet, she said at first. Lucas was careful, experienced. That frightened me more than evidence would have. Men who lie well don't improvise, they rehearse. And Lucas had been rehearsing for years. Still, I trusted the process. I trusted data. I trusted patience. Emotion had already failed me. Logic would not. While the investigation unfolded, I lived a double existence. By day, I was still the composed wife, still hosting dinners, still laughing at Lucas's jokes. By night, I replayed every interaction through a new lens. I noticed how he angled his phone away from me, how he showered immediately after coming home late, how his affection came in bursts like guilt-managed generosity. None of it was proof. All of it was pattern. And patterns eventually reveal truth. Claire's first real update came on a Wednesday afternoon. I was in my office reviewing quarterly projections when her message appeared. We have confirmation of a regular meeting. Same location. Same woman. My hands went cold. I closed my office door and sat down slowly, as if standing suddenly might break me. She described the woman mid-30s, professional attire, discreet demeanor. A secretary. Lucas's secretary. 2 years, Claire estimated. 2 years of lies that ran parallel to my marriage, unnoticed because I trusted too easily. The photographs arrived the next day. I didn't open them immediately. I waited until I was alone, until I felt steady enough to absorb what I already knew. The images were devastating in their ordinariness. Lucas laughing with her. Lucas touching her back. Lucas kissing her with a familiarity that made my stomach turn. There was no ambiguity. No room for explanation. This wasn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. It was a life he had been living comfortably, confidently, while calling me his wife. But the affair was only the beginning. Claire noticed something else, something that concerned her enough to investigate further. Regular transfers. Not business-related. Personal. Large sums moving from Lucas's accounts. She asked if we shared finances. I told her we did. That's when the ground truly shifted beneath me. Infidelity wounds the heart. Financial betrayal threatened survival. And Lucas had committed both with chilling precision. Over the following days, Claire mapped the money trail. Transfers timed around anniversaries, holidays, moments when Lucas claimed to be investing for our future. $50,000 here, $10,000 there. Gifts disguised as expenses. My breath caught when Claire mentioned one date in particular. Our anniversary? While I was toasting our marriage, he was wiring money to his mistress. That detail carved something permanent into me. Not rage, clarity. I confronted none of it. Not yet. I archived the photos, downloaded the reports, backed everything up in multiple locations. I behaved like the financial manager I was trained to be. Evidence doesn't argue. Evidence waits. Lucas noticed nothing. He slept beside me, unaware that every lie was being cataloged, time-stamped, preserved. Sometimes, I looked at him and wondered how easily a person could betray someone they claimed to love. The answer, I learned, was terrifyingly simple. If this story is unfolding in a way that feels uncomfortably familiar, subscribe now. What comes next isn't just discovery, it's confrontation. And when families get involved, truth becomes dangerous. I was about to step into a battlefield where loyalty would be questioned, narratives rewritten, and where I would first hear the word that would haunt me, monster. The confrontation didn't happen the way I imagined it would during those sleepless nights. There was no dramatic confession, no sudden collapse of Lucas's composure. Instead, it unfolded in the presence of his family, where truth is most dangerous and denial most powerful. It began as a simple Sunday lunch at his parents' house, the kind we had attended countless times. The table was set neatly. His mother smiled warmly. His sister poured wine. Everything looked normal. That normalcy felt obscene, like a stage set for a lie already written. I hadn't planned to speak that day. Not really. But something about the way Lucas's mother praised him, his integrity, his devotion, his luck in having such a patient wife, pressed against my chest until silence became unbearable. When I finally spoke, my voice was calm, almost gentle. I said I had discovered inconsistencies. I said I needed answers. I didn't accuse. I didn't raise my voice. I simply asked Lucas to explain why there were photographs of him with another woman. The room froze. Forks hovered midair. Time slowed. Lucas didn't deny it. Not immediately. Instead, he laughed, a short, incredulous sound meant to disarm. He told everyone I was stressed, that my job made me obsessive, that I was imagining patterns where none existed. Gaslighting, delivered smoothly, confidently. His sister nodded. His mother frowned at me, not him. I felt the shift instantly. The narrative was changing, and I was losing control of it. Truth, I learned, means nothing without authority. When I mentioned the money, Lucas's demeanor changed. His jaw tightened. His eyes hardened. He accused me of spying, of violating his privacy, of becoming someone he no longer recognized. That was when the words surfaced for the first time, monster. He said it quietly, but with venom. He told his family I had turned cold, calculating, obsessed. He said my need for proof made me cruel. And astonishingly, they believed him. Or perhaps they chose to. It was easier. His mother stood up, trembling with indignation, and asked how I could humiliate her son like this. How I could destroy the family with accusations. I tried to speak, but Lucas cut me off, telling them I was unstable. That my success had changed me. That I was no longer the woman he married. In that moment, I understood something devastating. Betrayal rarely stands alone. It recruits. It gathers witnesses willing to rewrite reality to preserve comfort. I left that house labeled, judged, and isolated. No one followed me. No one asked for my side. The drive home felt endless, my hands gripping the steering wheel as if letting go would cause me to disappear. I cried once, briefly, then stopped. Grief was giving way to something sharper. They had chosen their version of events. Lucas had chosen his. Now, I would choose mine. That evening, Lucas returned home furious. He accused me of trying to ruin him. He said I had embarrassed him in front of his family, that I had crossed an unforgivable line. When I asked about the transfers, he told me it was none of my business. When I reminded him it was our money, he laughed again. That laugh felt like a slap. It confirmed what I already knew. This wasn't going to end quietly. He packed a bag that night and told me he needed space from me, from my madness. As he stood at the door, he looked back and said the word again. Monster. As if naming me that would absolve him. As if cruelty could erase evidence. The door closed, and with it, the last illusion that reconciliation was possible. Alone in the silence of our house, I sat at the dining table and spread out the documents Claire had given me. Photographs, bank statements, timelines. Proof. I realized then that emotional confrontation was useless against someone who thrived on distortion. What I needed wasn't validation from his family. I needed structure, law, authority. I needed someone who would ask questions Lucas couldn't laugh away. If you're still listening, subscribe now. Because the moment they call you a monster is the moment you stop trying to be understood and start preparing to be unstoppable. And the next call I made would change the balance of power forever. I didn't choose Sophia Almeida by accident. I chose her the way a woman chooses armor after being wounded, but not defeated. Her name surfaced repeatedly during my research, attached to cases involving financial manipulation, marital fraud, and men who underestimated the women they betrayed. She wasn't flashy. She wasn't loud. She was precise. When I walked into her office, carrying a folder that represented the collapse of my marriage, she didn't offer sympathy. She offered clarity. That alone told me I was in the right place. She listened without interruption as I laid everything out. The affair. The money. The way Lucas had turned his family against me. I spoke steadily, narrating my own humiliation as if it were a case study. When I finished, there was a long silence, then Sophia leaned back, folded her hands, and said something that shifted the air in the room. They always call her a monster when she stops being convenient. It wasn't comfort. It was recognition. And it grounded me more than any reassurance could have. She examined the evidence with a sharp, almost surgical focus. The photographs, the bank transfers, the timelines. She asked questions Lucas had never anticipated anyone asking. Why were the transfers structured this way? Why did they align with personal dates? Why was joint money being framed as discretionary? Each question felt like a thread being pulled, unraveling a lie Lucas had spent years weaving. For the first time since the truth emerged, I wasn't alone in seeing the full picture. Sophia explained the strategy with calm authority. This would not be an emotional confrontation. It would be a controlled exposure. She warned me that Lucas would escalate, deny, attack, distort. Men like him relied on chaos to obscure facts. Our task was to deny him that chaos. We let him talk, she said. And then we asked the one question he cannot answer. I didn't yet know what that question would be, but I trusted her completely. Preparation became my new routine. We reconstructed our marriage through documents, not memories. Every transaction was logged. Every message contextualized.dra. Sophia insisted on precision. Dates mattered. Amounts mattered. Motive mattered. She taught me how the law sees betrayal not as heartbreak, but as breach. Breach of trust. Breach of duty. Breach of contract. Framing it that way transformed my pain into leverage. Lucas, unaware of the storm forming, continued his performance. He sent messages accusing me of cruelty, of obsession. He hinted that he would protect himself. Sophia smiled when I showed her those messages. Good, she said. Let him feel confident. Confidence makes liars careless. And carelessness leaves fingerprints. If you've ever wondered why silence can be more powerful than confrontation, this is why. As the court date approached, I felt something unexpected replacing fear. Control. Not the illusion of it, but the real thing. Knowledge. Structure. Support. Dra. Sophia prepared me not just legally, but psychologically. She warned me Lucas would try to provoke emotion, that he would frame himself as a victim, that he would repeat the word monster. Let him, she said. Every time he does, he proves her point. The night before our final preparation session, I sat alone and reread my own notes. I saw the arc clearly now: illusion, discovery, confrontation, and soon judgment. Not just legal judgment, moral judgment. Lucas had relied on my silence, my dignity, my reluctance to disrupt. He mistook those traits for weakness. That miscalculation would define his downfall. If you're still with me, subscribe now. Because the courtroom isn't just a place of law, it's a stage where truth, when properly prepared, becomes irreversible. And in the next phase, Lucas would finally realize that calling me a monster had only sharpened my teeth. Preparing for court was nothing like the movies. There were no dramatic rehearsals or emotional speeches in front of mirrors. Instead, it was quiet, relentless, and mentally exhausting. Dra. Sophia treated every detail as a potential weapon or liability. She reminded me repeatedly that the courtroom does not reward righteousness, it rewards coherence. Truth must be organized to survive opposition. So we organized everything. Not just evidence, but my posture, my tone, even my silence. We spent hours reconstructing timelines. Not the emotional timeline of my marriage, but the financial one. Dra. Sophia pinned dates to transfers, cross-referenced them with Lucas's travel records, client meetings, and personal milestones. Seeing my life reduced to data points was unsettling, yet it was also empowering. Each number stripped Lucas's lies of their romance. There was no passion here, no love story, just misuse, deception, and intent. She prepared me for what Lucas would try to do. He would question my stability. He would emphasize my profession, suggesting obsession with money. He would lean heavily on the word monster. Let him, she said again. The court listens to facts, not insults. Still, knowing something intellectually doesn't stop it from hurting. I practiced breathing through imagined provocations, training myself not to react. Reaction was what Lucas wanted. Composure was what would destroy him. The paperwork alone felt endless. Affidavits, statements, disclosures. Each document forced me to relive moments I would have preferred to forget. Every signature felt like closing a door. Dra. Sophia noticed my fatigue and reminded me gently that this was the cost of clarity. You're not just ending a marriage, she said. You're correcting a record. That sentence stayed with me. Correcting a record felt purposeful, necessary. Meanwhile, Lucas escalated. His messages shifted from anger to mockery. He told me I was wasting money, that no judge would take me seriously, that I would regret dragging his name through court. I forwarded everything to Dra. Sophia without responding. Silence unnerved him. I could feel it in the increasingly erratic tone of his texts. When people lose control of the narrative, they lose control of themselves. The week before the hearing, Dra. Sophia staged a full walkthrough, not the tricks, but structure. Where I would sit, when I would speak, when I would remain silent. She drilled into me that restraint was not weakness, it was discipline. Lucas would perform. I would observe. The contrast alone would speak volumes. I began to understand that power in court is often invisible, carried in stillness. On the eve of the hearing, sleep abandoned me. I lay awake replaying memories, wondering how someone I once trusted could become an adversary. I felt grief then, sharp and unfiltered. But it passed. What remained was resolve. Lucas had gambled that I would collapse under pressure. He had underestimated how much pressure I had already survived quietly. That morning, as I dressed, I chose simplicity. Neutral colors. No jewelry. Nothing that could be interpreted as aggression or excess. Dra. Sophia had taught me that appearances are read like subtext. Lucas, I suspected, would arrive confident, theatrical. The contrast would matter. Everything mattered now. Before entering the courthouse, Dra. Sophia stopped me. She looked directly into my eyes and said, "Today, he will lie convincingly. Let him. The truth doesn't need volume. It needs timing." I didn't yet know what that timing would look like. I only knew it was coming. And when it did, it would end everything Lucas thought he controlled. If you're still with me, subscribe now. Because the next step wasn't preparation, it was collision. And once Lucas took the stand, the lies would no longer belong only to him. The courtroom felt colder than I expected. Not physically, but emotionally. Like a space designed to drain warmth from human stories and reduce them to statements and counter-statements. Lucas sat across from me, impeccably dressed, calm, almost relaxed. He looked like a man confident in his narrative. When he met my eyes, There was a flicker of something contempt, perhaps, but it vanished quickly. He smiled faintly, the way someone does when they believe the outcome is already decided. The first witnesses were his, carefully chosen. A colleague who praised his professionalism, a family friend who spoke about his character and generosity. Even his mother took the stand, her voice trembling as she described her son as devoted, misunderstood, and unfairly attacked. Each testimony followed the same pattern: Lucas as victim, me as cold, distant, controlling. I felt the word forming even before it was spoken: monster. It hovered in the room without needing to be said. Listening without reacting was harder than any confrontation I'd faced before. My instincts screamed to interrupt, to correct, to defend myself. But Sophia had warned me, lies gain power when challenged emotionally. So I sat still. I watched. I took notes. I let them speak. And as they did, I noticed the cracks. Small inconsistencies. Timelines that didn't align. Certainty where there should have been hesitation. They weren't lying maliciously. They were lying loyally. And loyalty, I learned, is often blind. Then Lucas took the stand. He was composed, articulate, almost charming. He spoke about stress, about misunderstandings, about a marriage strained by my obsession with control. He framed my investigation as betrayal, my need for proof as cruelty. And then he said it out loud, clearly, for the record. He called me a monster. Not angrily, calmly, as if stating a fact. I felt a ripple move through the room. Sympathy shifted toward him, exactly as he intended. When questioned about the affair, Lucas denied intent. He minimized. He reframed. He called it a friendship that crossed boundaries briefly. When asked about the money, he smiled and said the transfers were investments, loans, misunderstandings. He spoke smoothly, confidently, weaving explanations that sounded plausible to anyone unfamiliar with the details. This was his strength. He didn't panic. He performed. And for a moment, I understood why his family believed him. Dear A. Sophia let him talk. She didn't interrupt. She didn't object unnecessarily. She watched him build his story higher and higher, like a tower constructed from assumptions. I realized then what she was doing. She was letting him commit fully to the lie. Because half-truths can be adjusted. Fully committed lies collapse catastrophically. The silence in the room grew heavier with each confident answer Lucas gave. When the opposing testimonies ended, there was a pause. Lucas looked satisfied. He glanced toward his family. His mother nodded slightly, reassured. In that moment, I saw it clearly. He believed he had won. That belief relaxed him. And relaxed liars make mistakes. My heart pounded not with fear, but anticipation. This wasn't over. It was only position. Dra. Sophia stood slowly. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't display outrage. She adjusted her glasses, glanced briefly at her notes, and then looked directly at Lucas. The room felt suddenly alert, as if everyone sensed a shift they couldn't yet explain. I felt it to a tightening, a focus. This was the moment preparation meets opportunity. She began with neutral questions. Dates. Amounts. Confirmations Lucas had already provided. He answered easily, confident, almost bored. Each answer locked him further into place. I watched his posture loosen, his certainty grow. He had no idea what was coming. None of them did, not yet. If you're still listening, subscribe now. Because the next question wasn't loud or dramatic, but it would erase every lie Lucas had just sworn to. And once it was asked, there would be no way back. The room went quiet in a way that felt deliberate, almost ceremonial. Dra. Sophia let the silence stretch just long enough to unsettle everyone. Lucas shifted slightly in his chair, adjusting his cufflinks, still confident, still unaware. Judges don't fear noise, they fear clarity. And clarity was settling in like a blade being sharpened. I felt my pulse in my ears, but my face remained still. This was the moment everything had been building toward. Sophia asked Lucas to confirm, once more, that the transfers he made were legitimate, unrelated to any personal relationship, and fully disclosed to me. He confirmed it all without hesitation. His voice was steady, practiced. The lie was now complete, airtight in his mind. I realized then how deeply he believed in his own version of reality. That belief had protected him for years. It would now betray him. She nodded as if satisfied, then reached into her folder and removed a single document. Not a stack. Not a photograph. Just one page. She held it lightly, almost casually, and asked him to confirm the date printed at the top. Lucas leaned forward, squinted briefly, and answered. It was our anniversary. I felt the air leave my lungs, not in pain, but in anticipation. He had just agreed to the frame of his own undoing. Then she asked the question. Calmly, clearly. Without accusation, Mr. Brandt, she said, Can you explain to the court why $50,000 from your joint account was transferred to your secretary on your wedding anniversary? The effect was immediate and visceral. Lucas froze, not theatrically, instinctively. His mouth opened, then closed. His eyes flicked toward his lawyer, then back to Dear A. Sophia. The room seemed to tilt. This wasn't a question he had rehearsed for. This wasn't an accusation he could laugh away. It was specific, precise, anchored in date, amount, and relationship. Lies thrive in vagueness. This question allowed none. He tried to respond. I watched the mechanics of deception fail in real time. He stammered, then attempted to reframe, calling it a coincidence, a business expense. Sophia didn't interrupt. She waited. Silence again. Judges understand silence. Silence after a question like that is not neutral, it's revealing. Lucas's confidence evaporated visibly. His posture collapsed inward, as if gravity had suddenly increased. The judge leaned forward. Lucas's lawyer whispered urgently. His mother, seated behind him, looked confused, then frightened. For the first time, the room was no longer on his side. Facts had entered the space, and facts are indifferent to charm. Dra. Sophia followed up, not aggressively, but inexorably. She introduced the bank records, the timing, the pattern, the photographs, not all at once, one by one. Each piece landed like a weight added to a scale already tipping. I felt something shift inside me, then not triumph, not relief, but release. The word monster echoed in my mind, stripped of its power. Monsters hide. Monsters manipulate in darkness. What stood exposed now was not me. It was him. Reduced, finally, to what he had tried so hard to conceal. A man who believed loyalty meant silence and love meant immunity. Lucas attempted one last defense. He claimed I was controlling, that I monitored finances obsessively. Dra. Sophia didn't object. She simply asked if managing joint finances was part of my professional expertise. I answered calmly when prompted. Yes, it was. The implication settled instantly. What he called obsession, the court recognized as competence. What he called cruelty, the record showed as diligence. The narrative inverted completely. The judge called for a recess. Lucas was pale now, visibly shaken. His family avoided my gaze. No one spoke to him. The isolation he had engineered for me was closing around him instead. As we stood, Sophia leaned toward me and whispered, "This is the moment they realize the monster story no longer works." I didn't smile. I didn't need to. The truth was doing its work. If you're still with me, subscribe now. Because when the court reconvened, the outcome would be inevitable. And in the final chapter, I wouldn't just walk away vindicated, I would walk away transformed. The ruling came quietly. No dramatic gavel slam. No raised voices. Just words read aloud with finality. The court recognized the affair, the financial misconduct, and the breach of marital trust. Lucas's explanations were dismissed as inconsistent. The transfers were ruled improper. The narrative he had built collapsed under its own weight. I listened without reacting, my hands folded neatly in my lap, feeling something close to peace for the first time in years. Justice, I learned, doesn't always feel explosive. Sometimes it feels like silence returning after a long, unbearable noise. Lucas didn't look at me when the decision was announced. His shoulders were slumped, his confidence gone. The man who once called me a monster now looked small, stripped of the authority he had borrowed from lies. His family left quickly, avoiding eye contact, as if proximity to truth burned. I felt no urge to follow them, no need for acknowledgement. Vindication doesn't require applause. It requires closure. And I had it. Outside the courthouse, the air felt different, lighter, cleaner. Dra. Sophia stood beside me, composed as always. She didn't congratulate me. She simply said, "You handled yourself with precision." Coming from her, that meant everything. We shook hands, and in that gesture was an unspoken understanding. This chapter was complete. The system had done what it was meant to do. But only because I had refused to stay silent. The weeks that followed were not euphoric. They were deliberate. I closed joint accounts, restructured my finances, reclaimed what had been quietly siphoned away. Each action felt like stitching myself back together. Friends reached out, some apologetic, some curious, some embarrassed by their earlier distance. I accepted what felt genuine and released the rest. Healing, I discovered, is selective. It doesn't invite everyone back in. At home, the space transformed. I removed objects that belonged to a life built on pretense. The house became quieter, not lonely, but honest. I began mornings differently, no longer waiting for someone else's routine to begin my own. Coffee tasted better. Sunlight felt intentional. I wasn't rebuilding a marriage. I was redefining myself. The word monster lost its sting entirely. I examined it one day, almost academically, and realized what it truly meant in Lucas's mouth. Monster was his word for accountability. For a woman who refused to absorb betrayal quietly. For someone who asked questions he couldn't answer. If that was monstrosity, I accepted it gladly. Power often looks frightening to those who benefit from your silence. I returned fully to my work, not as an escape, but as an expression of clarity. Numbers made sense again. Integrity felt tangible. Clients trusted me not because I was flawless, but because I was proven. There is a quiet confidence that comes from surviving distortion and emerging accurate. I carried that confidence everywhere with my posture, my voice, my boundaries. Sometimes I think back to the woman I was before the illusion cracked. I don't judge her. She believed in love and loyalty in shared futures. Those beliefs weren't naive, they were human. What changed was not my capacity to trust, but my refusal to confuse trust with blindness. That distinction reshaped everything. If you stayed with me until the end, subscribe. Not for revenge stories alone, but for reminders like this. Elegance is not passivity. Silence is not strength. And the moment you are called a monster for telling the truth is often the moment you step into your real power. This was my ending and my beginning.